Hello, this week we'll concentrate on the first chapters of our text. They're entitled Colliding Worlds. This particular lecture will focus on Africa before first contact with the New World. The question I'll answer is, how did Western Africans organize their worlds? And you'll notice that there are key terms, Sahel and complex chiefdoms. These key terms are going to need to appear in your forums and in your writing. So when you take an exam or when you write one of the 3 papers that you'll have to turn in, these key terms should appear and they should be properly used. I'll grade you on how well you use these terms and how often they appear in your writing. So again, these key terms are going to be crucial. And for your exams, I suggest you take notes starting right now, because these key terms are going to be one of the key ways that I'm going to grade your exam answers. Africa was in contact with Europe since ancient times. In fact, the term Africa is a European invention. The Romans coined the name. The general regions of Africa are the Sahara, the Sahel, which is sub-Saharan Africa or the Sudan, Equatorial Africa, and Southern Africa. Many Americans can trace their ancestry to peoples from the Sahel. There were a number of imperial polities in the Sahel. The Maghreb, or present-day Morocco, was one of them. The Songhai Empire in Mali, which was about the size of medieval France, was another imperial polity. There was in Central Africa the Congo Empire. There were dozens, maybe hundreds of smaller polities. There were city-states and complex chiefdoms. A complex chiefdom is a form of society where a number of villages group into chiefdoms, and these chiefdoms then form alliances into complex chiefdoms. We'll find these chiefdoms in Africa, in South and North America, in Asia, and I would argue that many European societies during medieval times were very much like complex chiefdoms, even though they would probably not consider themselves chiefdoms. Something important to understand was that most were hierarchical societies with hereditary leadership groups. We can see in this illustration some sort of leader on horseback being led by his imperial guards. There were warrior classes. Then there were peasants. At the very bottom were slaves. The medieval Sahel cultures had agricultural foundations. They raised livestock like cattle, goats, and camels, and they engaged in farming. They also had advanced military technologies. These were sophisticated cultures with iron and steel weapons, armored cavalry, and organized military units. Consequently, the Sahel polities were able to remain independent until the late 19th century, when Europeans arrived with machine guns. It wasn't until the introduction of rapid-fire weapons that Europeans could deal with powerful African societies. Why didn't Africans colonize Europe? The answer is, actually, Africans did colonize Europe. In ancient times, the Carthaginians colonized Spain and Sicily. The Carthaginians lived in what is today Tunisia, which is part of Africa. During the Middle Ages, Africans actually did colonize Europe. Again, Spain and Sicily were run by North African polities from the Maghreb, Libya, and Egypt. However, Central African polities did not colonize Europe. One of the reasons was that they did not have significant navies, because Africa has smooth coastlines with very few good harbors, at least on the western edge of Africa. Many of the most powerful polities were far from the coast, like the Mali Empire. and the prevailing currents in the Atlantic ran from north to south, making it very difficult to sail from Central Africa to Europe. And Western Africa has very few rivers. They're sparse and non-navigable. To wrap up, how did Western Africans organize their worlds? In empires, nation states, and for some, less complex polities like complex chiefdoms. These were often powerful, literate societies. We'll pick up with the concept of complex chiefdoms, however, in some of our next lectures.